The ship Calypso drifted through dark space like a quiet thought. Its engines were low, its lights dim, and its crew relaxed in the way people only could after months of routine. This region of space was empty, mapped only by long-range probes and probability charts. Nothing interesting was supposed to happen here. Commander Elias Wren watched the navigation display with half his attention. He had learned that staring too closely at stars made time feel slower, not faster. Humans were strange like that. They noticed small things when nothing else demanded focus. He rubbed his eyes and leaned back in his chair, listening to the low hum of the ship. Around him, officers spoke in calm voices, running checks they had run 1,000 times before. "Course steady," the navigator said. "Drive stable," engineering confirmed. No alarms, no warnings, just another quiet stretch between important places. That was when everything slowed down. At first, Elias thought it was a system failure. The hum of the engines dropped into a deep, stretched sound, like a note held too long. The blinking indicator lights seemed to hesitate between flashes. His breath felt thick in his chest, as if the air had turned heavy. He opened his mouth to speak, but the word took too long to form. And then he realized something terrifying. He was still thinking, not slowly, clearly, sharply. The rest of the world dragged like it was moving through thick water, but his mind raced ahead, free and fast. His heart beat once, and in that single beat he had time to notice everything. Dust floating in the air like frozen stars. A drop of coffee drifting out of a crewman's tilted mug. The navigator's fingers halfway through a movement, trembling in place. Elias tried to stand. His legs responded, but only a little, like they were pushing against invisible resistance. Still, they moved. Slowly, but they moved. "What is this?" he thought, and had time to think it again and still have time left over. Fear came, but it did not overwhelm him. Fear, stretched out like everything else, became something he could examine. His training kicked in, not as panic, but as focus. He looked at the screens. The numbers crawled, but he could read them. Sensors showed nothing unusual. Space outside was calm and dark. The moment felt endless, then it ended. The universe snapped back into place. The coffee cup hit the floor and shattered. The engines hummed normally. Voices overlapped as the crew reacted all at once. What the hell was that? Did anyone else feel? "Commander." Elias sucked in a breath like he had been underwater. His heart pounded, not from exertion but from the shock of suddenly having less time again. "Report," he said, his voice steady despite the rush in his chest. No one had alarms. No one had warnings. But every human on the bridge looked shaken, pale, wide-eyed. "We lost power for maybe a microsecond," the engineer guessed, "but nothing shows damage." "A microsecond doesn't feel like that," the navigator said quietly. Elias met her eyes. He could see the question there. The same one burning in his own mind. "Did you feel it too?" Later, in the medical bay, the crew tried to explain it. Doctors ran scans. Neurological tests showed nothing wrong. Heart rates had spiked, but not dangerously. No sign of toxins, no sign of radiation. The official report said unidentified temporal perception anomaly. That was the safest wording they could find. But among themselves, the humans spoke more honestly. "It was like time stretched," one crewman said. "I could think," another added. "Like, really think." Elias listened and said little. He remembered the way the fear had slowed with everything else, how it had become manageable, how calm he had felt inside something that should have caused panic. That night, alone in his quarters, he replayed the moment again and again. He closed his eyes and tried to feel it, the heaviness, the clarity, the strange freedom of having more time than the universe allowed. Nothing happened. Days passed. Then weeks. The fleet command received reports from alien observer ships that had been nearby. Their logs showed nothing. No distortion. No anomaly. To them, the Calypso had moved smoothly along its course without interruption. That worried Elias more than any alarm. If it had happened, it should have left a mark. unless it hadn't happened to space at all. Unless it had happened to humans. The second time came without warning. A maintenance drone malfunctioned in the lower deck, its guidance system looping wildly. A coolant line ruptured, flooding the corridor with freezing vapor. Two technicians were directly in its path. Elias was watching the feed when it happened. The drone lurched forward, and the world slowed again. This time he was ready. The vapor rolled like slow clouds. The technicians' faces twisted in shock, their mouths opening too late to shout. The drone's spinning arm crept toward them, deadly and calm. Elias moved. His fingers slid across the console with effort, but they slid. He rerouted power, shut down the drone, vented the coolant. Each action took time, real time that should not have existed. Inside his chest, his heart beat once. Then time returned. The drone clattered harmlessly to the floor. The vapor dispersed. The technicians collapsed, shaken but alive. The bridge went silent. They all knew now. In the following weeks, it kept happening. Always during moments of stress, near accidents, near danger, never during calm, and always only the humans noticed. Scientists theorized late into the night. Some suggested human brains process time differently under pressure. Others proposed an evolutionary trait, dormant until now. A few whispered about something deeper, something tied to consciousness itself. The aliens didn't believe any of it. To them, human explanations sounded like superstition wrapped in science. No instruments detected these moments. No equations predicted them. Without data, there was no truth. But humans had something else: experience. Pilots trained to trust instincts. Soldiers trained to act under fire. Doctors trained to make life-or-death choices in seconds. Humans had always been a species shaped by urgency. Now urgency was giving them something back. During a joint exercise with Allied ships, a navigation error sent two vessels on a collision course. Automated systems reacted too slowly. A human pilot fell into the moment. She adjusted thrusters, calculated angles, and transmitted warnings, all inside a stretched instant no one else perceived. The ships passed safely. The aliens stared at their displays in confusion. "How did she react so fast?" one of them asked. The human captain only smiled, uneasy and proud at the same time. Elias knew what this meant, even if no one said it aloud. The universe had cracks in it, thin places where time loosened its grip, and humans somehow could slip into them. Not by choice, not yet. But when pressure came, when stakes were high, humans did not freeze. They fell into the moment. And inside that moment they were something different, smarter, faster, more deliberate, dangerous. As the Calypso continued its journey, Elias stared at the stars with new eyes. Space no longer felt endless and indifferent. It felt flexible. Somewhere ahead, he knew, others would push humanity, test them, threaten them. And when that happened, when everything slowed down again, humans would be ready. Because they had already learned the most important thing. When time gave them more room, they did not waste it. The first official denial came from the Galactic Council less than a week after the Calypso filed its report. There was no such thing as perceived time dilation without measurable distortion. The physics committees rejected it. The biology groups dismissed it as stress-induced hallucination. The political delegates labeled it dangerous imagination. The report was archived, stamped, and quietly ignored. For the aliens, the matter was closed. For humans, it was only beginning. Commander Elias Wren sat in a quiet briefing room aboard the Calypso, watching recorded footage frame by frame. The video showed the maintenance incident again. To normal playback, the drone jerked, systems shut down instantly, and disaster was avoided in less than a second. Nothing strange. But Elias remembered what it felt like from the inside. The room had been wide, open, full of time. Across the table, Dr. Mara Solis folded her arms. She was a neuroscientist pulled from Earth on emergency orders. Her eyes were tired but sharp. "You didn't react faster," she said calmly. "You reacted longer. Elias nodded. That's what it felt like. She tapped the screen. Our instruments show your brain activity spiked far beyond normal limits, not chaotic, organized, focused, as if your mind entered a different operating mode. And the others? Elias asked. All humans involved show the same pattern, she replied, different intensities. Same shape. The door opened and Captain Rhea Valen stepped in. Her posture was stiff, controlled. She had commanded fleets for decades and did not scare easily. This situation scared her. The Council has issued a restriction, Rhea said. They want humans removed from high-risk positions during joint operations. Mara frowned. Because of something they say doesn't exist. Because they can't measure it, Rhea answered. And what they can't measure, they don't trust. Elias leaned back slowly. So they want us blind. They want predictability, Rhea corrected. They want safety. Silence filled the room. Outside, the ship moved smoothly through space, unaware of the tension inside. Humans had always been unpredictable to the galaxy, emotional, fast to react, slow to agree. But now there was something else. Something no one could see, but everyone could feel when it happened. The Council's decision spread quickly. Human pilots were reassigned. Human tactical officers were replaced with alien counterparts. Human advisors were told to observe, not act. Officially, it was about cooperation. Unofficially, it was fear. On the edge of explored space, a joint task force assembled to respond to pirate activity. The pirates were not human. They were aggressive, well-armed, and careless with life. They had destroyed civilian transports and vanished into unstable regions before anyone could stop them. The task force had superior numbers. It also had inferior reaction time. During the first engagement, the pirates ambushed the formation from an unexpected vector. Alien ships hesitated, following protocol, waiting for confirmation. Weapons systems took too long to align. A human sensor officer felt the pressure rise in her chest. The moment came. Time stretched. She saw the attack paths, saw the mistakes, saw the solution. She shouted warnings, adjusted targeting data, and rerouted signals through manual overrides. By the time the others reacted, the human ships had already moved. The pirates were driven off with minimal loss. The alien commanders were unsettled. They reviewed the data again and again. They found no explanation for the speed of the response. "You anticipated," one of them said. The human officer shook her head. "No, I had time." That answer went into no report. After that, humans began training differently. They could not force the moment. No button activated it. No chemical triggered it. It came only when it wanted to, when pressure was high and failure was close. But humans were good at preparing for things they could not control. Pilots trained reflex drills inside simulators set to impossible speeds. Soldiers practiced decision-making under extreme countdowns. Engineers worked on systems that could be controlled manually without automation delays, not to create the moment, but to be ready when it arrived. Dr. Mara Solis observed all of it, recording brain scans and behavioral changes. She noticed something important. Humans who trusted the moment experienced it more often. Those who panicked inside it lost it quickly. Fear mattered, but not in the way the galaxy understood. For humans, fear did not only break minds. Sometimes it sharpened them. The Council called another emergency session after a border colony went dark. The colony was mixed species, lightly defended. Long-range scans showed signs of impact, power failure, and unknown vessels in orbit. A rescue fleet was assembled. Humans were told to stay back. Captain Rhea Valen ignored the order. "This is not a theory," she said. "This is a capability." The fleet jumped in. What they found was worse than expected. The colony stations were damaged but intact. Unknown ships surrounded them, using strange energy nets to disable engines and weapons without destroying them. The attackers were methodical. They did not rush. They did not need to. Alien commanders hesitated, unsure how to respond without escalating. Communications dragged on. Demands were issued and ignored. Then one of the nets tightened. A station began to break apart. On the human flagship, Elias felt the pressure slam into him like a wave. The moment opened. The stars outside froze into sharp points. Enemy ships drifted like models. The energy nets glowed, their patterns suddenly clear. Elias did not shout. He acted. He rerouted power, bypassed safeguards, linked human ships into a manual network. Orders flowed not as commands but as shared intent. Inside the moment, every human felt it. Pilots moved together. Engineers adjusted flows by instinct. Gunners fired where targets would be, not where they were. Time resumed. To the attackers, the human response was impossible. Their nets collapsed. Their formations broke. 3 ships were disabled before they could retreat. The battle ended quickly. The colony survived. Afterward, the alien commanders demanded explanations. "How did you coordinate that fast?" one asked. Elias looked tired. "We didn't coordinate faster. We coordinated longer." The words echoed through the chamber. The council could no longer deny the outcome, but denial shifted into something else. Containment. New proposals surfaced. Human-only sectors, restrictions on joint command, monitoring of human neural activity, mandatory oversight. Not to protect others, to control humans, Dr. Solis warned them. "You can't regulate what you don't understand." The council replied with silence. Across human space, reactions were mixed. Some were proud, others were afraid. Religious groups argued, philosophers debated. Military planners saw opportunity. Parents wondered what this meant for their children. Humans had always lived knowing time would run out. Now they knew that sometimes it didn't. Elias stood alone on the observation deck, watching a distant star pulse softly. He thought about the moment, about how calm it felt, about how clear his choices were inside it, and about the fact that every time it happened, he chose to save lives. Not because he was ordered to, because he had time to decide. The galaxy feared humans because they were fast. It did not yet understand the truth. Humans were dangerous not because they acted without thought, but because, when everything slowed down, they thought more than anyone else ever could. And somewhere beyond the stars, forces were watching, learning, waiting to see what humans would do with all that extra time. The galaxy did not change its mind all at once. Fear never disappeared that easily. Instead, it hardened. After the rescue of the border colony, human ships were no longer quietly reassigned. They were restricted, watched, surrounded by rules written by beings who did not understand what they were trying to control. Human officers were required to submit detailed logs after every engagement. Neural scans became mandatory before and after missions. Observers from other species were placed on human bridges, their presence polite but tense. The message was clear. You are being studied. Commander Elias Wren felt it every day. Conversations stopped when he entered rooms. Alien officers spoke carefully around him, as if words themselves might trigger something dangerous. Even allies looked uneasy, unsure whether to trust what they could not see. But space did not slow down its threats just because the Council was afraid. Reports began coming in from the outer systems. Ships disabled without damage, crews missing, stations found empty, lights still on, meals half finished. No signs of struggle, no distress calls, something was hunting. The Council blamed pirates at first, then rogue factions, then each other. Meetings dragged on, filled with arguments and delays. Humans watched the patterns. They saw what others missed. "These aren't random," Elias said during a restricted briefing. "The attacks follow response times. The slowest systems are hit first." An alien strategist tilted their head. "That suggests intelligence." "It suggests patience," Elias replied. "They wait for hesitation." Dr. Mara Solis stood beside him, arms crossed. "Whatever this is, it understands reaction limits, not just technology, behavior." The Council authorized a reconnaissance mission. No combat, no escalation, just observation. Humans were allowed to join, barely. The fleet moved into a dim region near a collapsed star cluster. Sensors struggled there. Signals bent strangely. Long shadows stretched between broken light. That was where the ambush came. It did not begin with weapons. It began with silence. Communications flickered, then dropped. Not jammed, not destroyed, just gone. Power systems dipped. Engines lost response for a fraction of a second. That fraction was enough. Elias felt the pressure rise instantly. The moment opened. The stars slowed. The silence deepened. His thoughts sharpened like a blade. Around him, humans stiffened, eyes focusing, breath steadying. They did not speak. They did not need to. They felt it together. Enemy ships emerged from the darkness, smooth and dark, their shapes hard to define. Not fast, not slow, just precise. Inside the moment, Elias saw the truth. These ships did not outgun them. They outweighed them. The attackers relied on hesitation, on confusion, on the tiny gaps between decision and action. Gaps humans no longer had. Elias moved. Commands flowed through manual channels, bypassing locked systems. Human pilots adjusted position by instinct, sliding between attack paths that had not yet fully formed. Weapons fired, not wildly, not in panic, but carefully where the enemy would commit next. Time snapped back. The battle exploded into motion. To alien observers, it looked like chaos. Human ships surged forward, firing and maneuvering at impossible speed. Enemy vessels recoiled, formations breaking as if startled. Within minutes, the attackers withdrew. They did not flee. They disengaged, as if satisfied. The fleet regrouped in shaken silence. Damage was minimal, losses were none, but something was wrong. They were testing us, Mara said quietly. Yes, Elias agreed. And they learned something. What? An alien commander asked. That we don't hesitate, Elias said. And that scares them. The Council's reaction was swift and panicked. Emergency measures were declared. Human movement was further restricted. Some delegates openly suggested removing humans from shared space entirely. They provoke danger, one said. They attract it, another added. Humans listened and grew angry, not loud anger, not reckless anger, focused anger. On Earth and its colonies, debates ignited. Protests formed. Messages flooded the networks. Humans were tired of being treated like a problem instead of a shield. Elias was summoned to speak before the council. The chamber was vast, filled with colors and shapes from dozens of species. He stood alone at the center, human and unarmed. You have seen what happens, he said evenly. We did not seek this, but it exists. You are unstable, a delegate replied. Your kind changes under pressure. Elias nodded. Yes, we do. That makes you dangerous. No, Elias said. That makes us responsible. The chamber stirred. You fear us because we act when others freeze, he continued. But ask yourselves this. In every incident so far, who did we protect? Silence answered. You want to limit us, Elias said. Fine, but the threat out there will not limit itself. The council delayed its decision. Again, they never saw the next attack coming. It did not strike ships, it struck time. Across multiple systems, moments began slipping. Micro-failures, delayed reactions, missed signals, accidents that should not have happened. Only among non-human crews. Humans noticed immediately. They're doing something, Mara said, reviewing the data. Something that affects perception. The enemy had adapted. They could not match humans inside the moment, so they were stealing moments from everyone else. Alien reaction time slowed. Confusion spread. Crews doubted themselves. Systems failed not because they were broken, but because no one reacted fast enough anymore. The galaxy was being pushed into hesitation. The council panicked. And finally, they turned to humanity. Elias was placed in command of a joint defense force. Not because the council trusted him, because they had no choice. The enemy struck again, this time at a major trade hub. Hundreds of ships, thousands of lives. As the first systems failed, Elias felt the pressure rise higher than ever before. The moment did not just open. It widened. Time stretched so far it felt unreal. Thoughts layered upon thoughts. Possibilities unfolded like maps. Inside it, Elias realized something new. The moment was not just an individual thing. It spread. Humans linked together not by technology but by shared urgency. Their actions aligned naturally without words. They became a network. Orders were unnecessary. Everyone knew what to do. When time resumed, the response was overwhelming. Human ships moved as one. Defensive lines formed instantly. Enemy tactics collapsed under the weight of perfect timing. The attackers tried to retreat. Humans let them. Because inside the moment, Elias had seen further. He had seen fear in the enemy's patterns. Not fear of weapons, fear of choice. They had built their strategy on controlling hesitation, on stealing time from others. Humans were immune. More than that, humans were becoming something the enemy could not predict. After the battle, the galaxy was quiet. The council did not meet for days. When they did, their tone had changed, not friendly but respectful. Dr. Mara Soli stood beside Elias on the observation deck afterward. Stars drifted slowly beyond the glass. "They're not scared of you anymore," she said. Elias shook his head. "They are, but differently now." "Yes," he agreed. "Now they're scared of what happens if they don't let us act." Mara studied him. "Do you ever wonder where this leads?" Elias thought about the moment, about how it felt bigger every time, about how natural it was becoming. "Yes," he said, "all the time. And I think," Elias said slowly, "that whatever comes next, it won't wait for permission." Far away, beyond known space, something watched the battle records. An intelligence older than the Council, older than human space. It had tried to steal time, and failed. Now it was planning something worse. Because if humans could not be slowed, they would have to be stopped another way. The galaxy felt different after the last battle. Not quieter, but tighter, like everyone was holding their breath. Trade lanes reopened slowly. Fleets moved with caution. Messages passed through the council chambers with careful words and hidden fear. No one said it openly, but everyone understood the truth now. Something out there was learning. Commander Elias Wren felt the weight of it every time he closed his eyes. The moment came more easily now, too easily. Sometimes it brushed against his thoughts even when there was no danger, like a door that no longer fully closed. That worried him more than any enemy ship. Dr. Mara Solis noticed it too. Her scans showed changes, small but steady. Human brains were adapting, forming new patterns under repeated pressure. The moment was no longer just a reaction. It was becoming familiar. "You're not supposed to get used to it," she told Elias quietly. "Stress responses fade or burn out. This one is settling in." "Is that bad?" he asked. She hesitated. "I don't know yet." The council finally issued a new directive. Humans would no longer be restricted. They would be placed at the center of joint defense strategy, not as leaders, not officially, but as the ones allowed to act first. It was an uncomfortable compromise. Aliens still did not trust humans fully, but they trusted the enemy even less. The enemy, however, had not been idle. The next attack was nothing like before. No ships appeared, no weapons fired, no systems failed. Instead, entire regions of space went wrong. Time did not slow, it fractured. Navigation charts stopped agreeing with themselves. Signals arrived before they were sent. Automated systems made decisions too early or too late. Crews reported feeling lost inside familiar routines, unable to tell if seconds or minutes had passed. Non-human crews suffered the most. Panic spread. Accidents increased. Fleets pulled back in confusion. Humans felt it too, but differently. Elias stood on the bridge as the distortion spread through their sector. The air felt heavy, like before a storm. His heart rate rose, not in fear but in recognition. The moment opened, but this time it was unstable. Time stretched, twisted, folded back on itself. Elias could think, but the edges of his thoughts blurred. The clarity he relied on wavered. "This isn't natural," Mara said, her voice echoing strangely. "They're forcing it." The enemy had learned how to damage time itself, not to control it, to break it. Inside the moment, Elias saw flashes of possibilities colliding. Decisions overlapped. Actions threatened to cancel each other out. If humans acted wrong here, they could trap themselves in endless hesitation. The enemy had changed tactics. They could not slow humans. So they would drown them in too many moments at once. "Pull back," an alien commander shouted. "We can't coordinate." Elias did not answer. He closed his eyes. Inside the broken moment, he stopped trying to do more. Instead, he did less. He focused on one thing: choice. Humans did not win because they were faster. They won because they decided, again and again. Even when wrong, they moved forward. Elias anchored himself to that truth. He reached out, not with technology, not with orders, but with intent. A simple signal spread through the human crews. "Slow down inside the moment. Let it pass through you, don't fight it." The distortion resisted. Time buckled harder. The enemy pressed, trying to overload human perception. Then something unexpected happened. Humans adapted. Instead of falling deeper into the fractured moment, they learned to skim it, to touch only the surface, to act briefly then let go. Short decisions, clean actions, no overthinking. The chaos eased. Alien systems stabilized as humans adjusted critical functions manually, guiding others through the confusion. Ships followed human movement patterns without understanding why they worked. When the distortion finally faded, the sector remained intact. The enemy had failed again. But the cost was clear. Several humans collapsed from mental exhaustion, not injured, not damaged, changed. Mara's scans confirmed it later. Human neural patterns were diverging faster now. The moment was no longer an emergency state. It was becoming integrated. "This isn't just a skill anymore," she said softly. "It's an evolution." The council did not know how to respond to that. Some delegates demanded limits. Others demanded separation. A few whispered about preemptive control, about safeguards in case humans became too powerful. Elias heard about all of it. He said nothing, because the enemy was not done. The next move came quietly. A message broadcast across multiple channels, translated into every known language. It was simple. "We cannot slow you. We cannot outweight you. So we will change what you protect." Almost immediately, reports flooded in. Civilian worlds targeted, not destroyed, isolated, cut off by time distortions that made rescue nearly impossible. The enemy was baiting humanity. For the first time, humans hesitated. Not because they were afraid, but because they cared. Elias felt the pressure rise again, heavier than ever. The moment opened wide, deeper than before. Inside it, he saw paths branching endlessly. Save one world, lose another, act too fast, act too slow. The enemy was forcing humans to face something worse than danger: responsibility. If humans chose wrong, billions could suffer. Mara watched Elias carefully. "You can't save everyone," she said. "I know," he replied. Inside the moment, Elias realized something else. The enemy thought humans were special because of time. They were wrong. Time was only the tool. What made humans dangerous was what they did with it. He made his decision, not inside the moment, outside it. He ordered the fleet to split, not evenly, not safely. He trusted human crews to fall into the moment where needed, to stretch time only when lives were truly at risk. And he trusted alien allies to follow. The rescue operations were chaotic, imperfect. Some worlds were reached too late. Others were saved against impossible odds. But something changed. The enemy expected precision. They got humanity instead. Messy, emotional, refusing to play the game cleanly. When the final distortions collapsed, the enemy withdrew once more. This time they did not send threats. They sent silence. The council reconvened days later. The mood was different now. Less fear, more uncertainty. "You are changing," one delegate said to Elias. "Faster than we expected." "Yes," Elias agreed. "And if you change beyond control," Elias looked around the chamber. At the beings who had delayed, hesitated, debated while others suffered. "We already did," he said calmly. "You just didn't notice." Mara stood beside him as they left the chamber. "Do you think they'll ever fully trust us?" she asked. Elias considered the question. "No," he said, "but they don't have to." Outside, the stars looked steady again. Normal, calm, but Elias knew better now. Time was no longer a wall, it was a door, and humanity had learned how to walk through it. Somewhere far beyond known space, the enemy watched the latest data. Human behavior no longer followed any model. They had tried force. They had tried control. They had tried breaking time. Now only one option remained: to confront humanity directly, not in time, but in meaning. And that was a battle no one had ever fought before. The final move did not come as an attack. There were no ships, no distortions, no alarms. It came as a question. Every major communication channel across known space received the same signal at the same time. It did not overpower systems or force itself through defenses. It waited to be accepted. When it was opened, there was no image, only a calm, steady voice. "We see you now." The council froze. Fleets stood by. Worlds waited. The voice continued. "You are not fast because of time. You are fast because you choose while others wait. We do not understand this." The enemy had finally spoken. Commander Elias Wren stood in a quiet room, surrounded by human and alien leaders watching the transmission. Dr. Mara Soli stood beside him, her expression unreadable. "They're not threatening," she said softly. "They're curious." The voice returned. "We built ourselves to avoid error, to wait until certainty, to remove choice where it caused loss. That made us strong." A pause. "Then we met you." Images appeared briefly, simulations of battles, distortions, failed strategies. Humans acting inside moments, saving lives, making imperfect choices that somehow worked. "We tried to slow you. We tried to outweight you. We tried to break time itself." Another pause. It did not work. Elias felt the pressure rise, but gently, not sharply. The moment brushed against him, then receded. For the first time, it did not demand action. The voice spoke again. "When faced with uncertainty, you move. When faced with loss, you choose. When faced with power, you restrain yourselves." Alien leaders shifted uneasily. "These behaviors are inefficient," the voice said, "and yet they succeed." The signal ended. No demands, no threats, just silence. The council erupted into argument. Some saw deception. Others saw weakness. A few saw opportunity. "They're trying to understand us," one delegate said. "That's dangerous." "They're admitting failure," another argued. "That makes them desperate." Elias listened, but his thoughts were elsewhere. "They didn't ask how to beat us," he said quietly. The room slowly fell silent. "They asked what we are." Days passed without incident. No attacks came. No distortions followed. Trade lanes remained open. World stayed calm. Then a second message arrived. This one was addressed directly to humanity. "We request observation," the voice said. "Not of your weapons, not of your technology, of your decisions." The council rejected it immediately. "Absolutely not," they declared. "No access to human systems or populations." Elias surprised them. "We should allow it," he said. Every eye turned toward him. "They already observe us in battle," he continued. "What they don't understand is why we stop." Mara looked at him sharply. "You're talking about trust." "I'm talking about control," Elias replied. "Theirs, not ours." Against intense opposition, a compromise was reached. A single human vessel, unarmed, would host the observation. No data transfer, no system access, just presence. The ship was called the Stilpon. When the enemy envoy arrived, it did not come in a ship. It arrived as a structure of light and shadow that folded into itself, stabilizing slowly. Sensors struggled to describe it. The thing was not hostile, but it was not familiar. Inside the observation chamber, Elias stood calmly. The pressure rose slightly, but no moment came. This was not danger. The entity spoke without sound. You experience time as a resource, it said. We experience it as a constraint. Time runs out for us, Elias replied. That's why it matters. You act knowing you may fail. Yes. And yet you act. Yes. The entity paused. We remove choice to remove regret. Elias shook his head. That just moved regret somewhere else. Mara watched silently as the conversation continued. You could dominate, the entity said. Your ability would allow it. Elias did not hesitate. We won't. Why? The question was not a test. It was genuine. Because we know what it costs, Elias said. We've done it to ourselves before. The entity considered this. You choose restraint without certainty of reward. Yes. Even when you have time to consider every outcome. Yes. The entity's form shifted, patterns changing slowly. This behavior cannot be modeled. Elias smiled faintly. We know. The observation lasted weeks. The entity watched humans argue, make mistakes, help each other, forgive, and move forward. It watched them fall into moments during emergencies and step back out when they could do harm. It watched humans choose to stop. Finally, the entity spoke one last time. We sought control to avoid loss. You accept loss to preserve meaning. Elias felt the moment stir not as pressure but as warmth. We will withdraw, the entity said, not because we are defeated, but because continuation would change us. The signal spread across the galaxy. The enemy was leaving, not destroyed, not conquered, changed. The council struggled to respond. There was no victory parade, no clear resolution, just relief and confusion. Humans returned to their worlds, fleets stood down, life resumed, but nothing was the same. The moment still came, but less often now, softer. As if it understood it was no longer needed every time. Mara confirmed it months later. Your brains are stabilizing. Whatever this was, it's settling. Are we losing it? Elias asked. She shook her head. No, I think it's becoming a choice. That scared him more than anything else. Years passed. Humanity was no longer feared as an unknown. It was respected as an anchor. When crises arose, humans were called not to act fast but to decide. Elias retired quietly. He spent his days watching stars and teaching young officers. One of them asked him once, what did it feel like inside the moment? Elias thought for a long time. It felt like responsibility, he said. On a distant edge of space, the entity watched humanity one final time before turning away. They did not fear humans anymore. They envied them, because humans lived knowing time would end, and still chose to use it well. When everything had slowed down, when the universe had given them more time than anyone else, humanity had proven the truth. Power did not come from controlling time. It came from knowing when to move and when to stop.